Wanda Unique Davis, here to bring out the unique in you so that you too can prosper. And we're here on the Seven Figure Hustle Show.
I'm Melody Bazemore on the Seven Figure Hustle Show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello, and welcome to Tony J's Seven Figure Hustle. We have with us Miss Melody Bazemore, the amazing Melody Bazemore. She is a mother of 4. She is an expert today in financial literacy. She's also an expert with the Seven Figure Hustle. Now, you're going to share some things with us today. You're going to talk about some things and give us some advice on what we should be doing now. So, Miss Melody Bazemore, what would you share with us and enlighten us on? Because as I said, you're the expert. So I learned from you a lot as well. And what would you like to share with our audience today? And what else could you help me with in terms of multiple streams of income, being on the right track, and taking financial literacy serious? Because it is a serious thing all the way around.
Yes, well, thank you, Wanda, for having me and taking the time out to host this fabulous Seven Figure Hustle television show. I'm honored to be also an expert invite to the Tony J Seven Figure Morning Show on the radio every Tuesday. So guys, a little bit about myself. I'm a hairstylist from 30 years prior and an entrepreneur all my life. So when I thought I was really getting entrepreneurship skills, I realized after going through this battle with financial literacy that it was just a job, per se, because if I didn't go to work when the clients came in, I didn't get paid. So it had entrepreneurship, but I'm going to say glorified employee. Because at the same token, I wasn't using my skills besides the basic bookkeeping. Because it's different levels of bookkeeping.
Yes.
And that's basic, just knowing where your money is going, because that's a big thing in business. But I didn't know that that's budgeting and you need to apply it to your life. So I did the things for the business, but I wasn't applying them to my life.
Makes sense.
So life happens, things happen. And back in 2007, a recession came and we seen a lot of people lose their employment. It was homes.
That was the market crash for that time.
Yes, the real estate market crash. It was heavy and it held on and made unemployment the highest ever. And this went on from about 2007 to 2009. The end of 2009, I actually had to close my salon due to I just couldn't hold on no more. 2 sets of bills, mortgage, commercial property, 2 electrics, 2 gas, 2 water. So owning the business came a lot of extra costs, like I said, to everything. Just to make money, you had to spend money.
Absolutely.
So why am I here today as an expert in financial literacy? Because life happened and I was taught the hard way. Because financial literacy is not taught in our public or formal education. And with that being said, if it's not taught at home either, because the majority of Americans, I would say 80% of Americans, inherit their older generational, what I now call curse, but rhythm of, if your mother taught you to go to school, get that job, work for 40 years so you can retire with a pension, then that's going to be repeated from generation to generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We see that all the time.
Yes. And one of the things that I'm noticing now that America is built. It's not a lot of jobs that's for the builder. I mean, yes, real estate is always great because you can rehab, as they call it. You can knock it down. You can rebuild. But other than that, companies is built strong. A lot of corporate things is built strong. The NBA, the professionals, the Hollywood, built pretty strong. But the average person don't have those dreams to even reaching those heights. Even a newscaster may earn about $200,000 a year, and that's a cap. But when you're paying $200 a month for cable so we can watch TV, start doing the math. 12 times 200, $2,400 to watch TV a year, and that's an average package. That's not having the luxuries of having your HMOs and HBO, Showtime, the designer names, the premium channels. See, I'm getting away from that because now for me it's about saving money.
It makes sense.
And making your money work for you.
Work for you.
So we can have some conversations on how do you make money work for you. Because what we're trying to do, and what I love about Tony J and the 7-Figure Hustle show, is showing you and giving you so many ways to make a dollar stretch, for how to multiply your dollar, because inflation is consistent.
It is. And there are different generations or different times, different decades when there are terms that are being used. In 1999, the term networking was big. I was actually nicknamed Networking Nancy. For now, two of the words that we hear all the time, or that I hear repeatedly and you see everywhere, is financial literacy. What is financial literacy, and how do we apply, or how should someone apply financial literacy today? When we're talking about going from maybe last year to this year, what is this financial literacy piece? What does it entail? I mean, even now with my son being in college, it is about financial literacy. So what can you share with us about that?
Absolutely, Wanda. As we was talking, this is the biggest subject going across America. Our politicians is talking about it. We have people fighting for this to become a series or a class within our public school systems, because financial literacy is more than just having a credit score. It's knowing where your money is going. How is it being calculated and divided? Because one thing, when you work, you're considered a W-2 employee, and with being a W-2 employee, you're going to inherit federal government taxes, state taxes, local taxes, city taxes, Medicare taxes, Social Security taxes. So before you even take home your pay, it's being taxed, because this is the systematic system that's designed. So when we apply for things, this is a big thing that I think is important. They go by your gross net worth. So you make a certain amount per hour, but then after the taxes, you take home a net pay. But when you apply for credit or home, they're looking at the gross, what the total amount.
As if you have that to calculate.
Exactly.
To work with.
So it's like a catch-22. One of my favorite people that I follow is Robert Kiyosaki. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a book that he's written, and it really explains the two sides of the brain. Is to repeat what you was taught and never change the system, or maybe learn what you wasn't taught and learn the system to play the game. One of the things that I agree with him a lot is the best game we ever should have played is Monopoly. Why? Because it put cash in your hands. You've seen what to do with the cash, and what did they encourage? You to buy homes, invest. You could pull a card for your investments, waterworks, railroad, things that wasn't going away. where now when you look at our television and reality TV, we see by Hermes, by Gucci, by Chanel, but will Gucci, Chanel, Hermes leave you something in their last will and testament?
And you know, and it's funny you say that. That was one of my favorite games, Monopoly. And when things that we do and things that we see and then we repeat, it actually sinks in. Maybe I should have never stopped playing Monopoly. But you mentioned earlier, we were having a conversation earlier about Robert Kiyosaki's latest book and the video that you were going to share. Can you finish telling me what you were sharing that information about, as to be able to give our listeners some angle of his point of view for the new book? I think you said it was called Fake.
Yes. A little bit about what I was hearing. It really caught my attention today because I know financial literacy is so important. Like I said, it's talking about budgeting, savings, learning how to pay off debt, understanding interest rates. You know, what's your net worth? You know, most people don't talk about assets versus liabilities. Liabilities is the things that come unannounced, residual bills, that electric, the gas, the water, the cable. You know, our cell phone has became a residual bill because most of us don't even utilize a landline phone. You know, that's included in cable now. It's free now. You know, you have to understand the evolvement of the world, the economy. You know, a lot of us just are so caught up for security that we don't take risks. We don't walk on faith. You know, so many of us preach about being religious or knowing God, and we all know that is great. But when you really know and believe, then you have to trust your inner, because a lot of education that we talk about is bookwork. Like, I still remember 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered America. But that's not going to feed me or my children or my grandchildren today. I needed to learn about how to make my dollar double.
Right. And what
to invest in.
Absolutely. And those things that we even learned then, we find today have changed or are different. And I can even think about when I was in college, I didn't have to co-sign for a loan. But as a single mom, my son is in college right now, and he had to have a co-signer, you know, and there are things that we did not know, or some of us weren't taught or didn't grasp earlier. Had I known then what I know now, I would have made sure, you know, whether it's putting him on my credit card, I would have prepared him that when he got to college to have a, you know, perfect credit score instead of no credit, because he's just starting at 19.
Bad credit these days. You know, dating ourselves, we were babies in the 60s.
Yes. So
coming out of high school, no credit was good credit back in the 80s. But we have to look at life. It revives. Absolutely. And as we grow, we're more a financial institution than anything ever. When you go out to apply for a regular job, whether it's working at McDonald's or working in a hospital, and they have to run your credit to show if you're creditable to have this job, because you and your other partner that actually applied for the job could have the same credentials. So now they're using the credit score just to say who can even take this position. So that's why financial literacy is so important, because you want to know where your dollar is going. You know, you want to just be in a good place to be able to protect it, because your identity is valuable, secure your assets, leave a legacy, and make sure that you put all your ducks in a row so that the family won't break up after a loved one passes. So we teach it all around the board, and it's just something I love to do because if I only reach one person and help that family, it changes a whole generation from there.
So I want to thank you, and I just want to reiterate the things that you said we should think about: financial literacy and our credit. That was the point. That was important. So let's take a break for let's take a break. Go off and take a
we'll
break.
Come back and
we'll
talk
be
about
right back in a few
streets.
minutes.
My chance. For so long, I was so vain, I felt I was doing it. So I'm just telling you series of my life so you can understand how I got to transformation. In 2011, I lost my job to SEPTA. I went through all this. I attempted suicide. Because you know why? My mind was wandering on all the things that I never was able to speak out. So depression set in. And I wanted out of here. But even God said, what are you doing? You can't take you. I got plans for you. I got something for you to do. It's a reason you went through these things. But if you allow the enemy to play in your head, you won't even understand. You won't even learn it. You won't even get the lesson. You won't get the blessing. And oftentimes, you don't tell me to wrap it up. Okay. So oftentimes, when we look at other people's success, we say, oh, that's so dang. Well, how did he get this? How did she get this? I just told you a little bit about my story. So the next time you look at another, and Instagram and Facebook, I had you so messed up. Because you'll be up at 6 in the morning ready to go to work. And you'll see something like, how? Now we work at the same job. How's she vacationing more? She ain't. That's from last year. She just didn't. And you got, and now she done got away. Don't worry about the next person. Because your transformation is on its way when you change your mindset.
We're back, and we left off talking about multiple streams of income, and we were going to talk about, you were going to mention about the taxes. So what we just talked about while we were on break, why don't you share that with our listening and watching audience?
Awesome, definitely. We were just talking about how many different ways there is to make multiple streams of income. You can just be creative and that can become an income. But just by you guys having what they call multiple streams of income is a home-based business. Because I always say having 2 jobs is for 2 people. You know, if you go out to work 9 to 5, you want to come home to your family. And if you want to make some extra money, make it right from outside of your home. And just from having a home-based business, you can now start purchasing more assets, because the biggest thing that we don't understand is certain items really become liabilities, like your car. A car depreciates, you know, your clothes, they depreciate. You can buy some nice items that might last for a while, but overall things depreciate. So that's why you want to buy assets versus having a whole bunch of liabilities. Because when you start learning about assets and liabilities, now you can take their home-based business and start having those tax deductions. Because tax deductions is what you want to have when you're filing at this time of the year. Most people get so comfortable because when they have children, they get earned income. So that allows you to get a tax return. But once the children is 18 and have their own families and you don't have a child to claim, how do you get some of your money back? One of the ways is having that home-based business.
Absolutely, because I can no longer claim my 19-year-old, and that was real when I looked at my taxes coming up.
Yes.
And you talked about assets. Give us an example of assets for someone who may not know, who might be
for a millennium.
Oh, millennials, absolutely. The difference
yes.
between an asset and liability. Asset is their home, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, an asset could be your first property. You know, nowadays, the millenniums, I mean, they changing the game. A lot of them have a whole different mindset. So as for my millennials, I have twin boys that's 26. I'm encouraging them to buy their first home, but not buy a whole house. How about buy a multi-unit and have an investment property with their first home? Because if they're young, they're 26, one has a newborn, but one has no children. So even with a newborn, do they need 3, 4, 5 bedrooms right now at 26? Absolutely not. Let's set them up where that multi-unit, someone would rent the top or bottom, whichever one they choose, because having your own gives you choices. So
And one can pay for
the
what you're
whole
living in.
mortgage, most people have to understand when you are a renter, you're just paying somebody else's
You're
mortgage.
just paying someone else's
So
mortgage.
that's a great asset to have. Another asset would be gold bars, stocks, bonds.
Stocks and
But
bonds.
stocks, guys, is a risk factor. So you must, before you jump into that whole stock market,
You need to
be
understand it.
educated. Be
That's
educated.
financial literacy right there. There goes that word
Be
again.
educated because you are now taking a risk in your investment. More solid is their home, having real estate. You can't go wrong with
Cannot
real
go
estate.
wrong with the real estate.
Gold, bitcoins, the new cryptocurrency is very unknowledgeable to people. But when you start seeing ATMs in your corner store that you can get Bitcoin returns, it must be more real than they actually let on. So that's the whole thing is you want to stay in the mix of what's happening now. I totally believe in fighting for rights and good education, but we know sometimes that is a process. So you need to know what's allowed today, 2020, a new decade, what laws pertain to you and now, so that you can build the lifestyle and the wealth that you desire. Because wealth to me is not having 8 and 9 figure income. It's being comfortable with a good credit score where it allows me to be able to live a free life.
And being educated.
And being educated, yes.
And being not only financially educated, but also being educated with the political process, because each administration, whether it's local, regional, or national, affects us. Some people do not realize what the who's in charge right now, how it affects us. So many of us don't even know that the tax laws have changed, and the people that they put on the courts and determines our future and the future generations. So keep up with who's being elected, and you know that your vote does matter, because if it did not, they would not try to take it from you. And who governs us, whether it's a judge on the Supreme Court or the justices, they determine the laws, and the laws go right back to the money. So you can feel like you're comfortable today, but if you do not vote for someone and our administrations are handed by those who care only about a certain body or a certain percentage, like the 1%, then you really do yourself a disservice by not being financially educated and just knowing what's going on around you.
Yes.
Even important as voting.
Absolutely. And times change. I'm in the generation, I think we might be X because we're in the middle, so I guess we're X'd out because we were so spoiled and we didn't see what was coming forward, because we came from a generation that came through so much that they felt, though, let me give my children more than what I have, which was the biggest mistake, because my mother is still here, thank God, and she's 83, and she can tell me the story of her mother and the stories that they told them for how they were going to go out and get these good jobs, and where my father was a veteran city employee by being a firefighter for 25 years, state worker, everything that was told to be good. But when he passed away, she lost half of the household income, went in the grave with him. And I feel like that's a disservice for our senior citizens, because we have so many seniors, once their loved one, their spouse passes, how do they maintain off of such a bad income? You drop, if you're living in a house and you lose half of your income, How is that person supposed to survive? And over 80, you really think that it's fair to say they should go out and work at Walmart? That, where is the retirement?
And we're looking at the gentrification that's going on all over the United States and the different cities that we've lived in. And if we were at financial literacy was taught generation after generation, they have in some races, in some cultures, in some families, but there's a lot it was missing. Some would not be subjected to gentrification right now.
Right. Well, some of what they just made up that word gentrification is basically, it's just saying that just like the Titanic, if you knew it was going to sink, you wouldn't have got on there. Well, we're coming back to another financial crisis. We're getting ready to go into. It's not going to be, date and time stamp. That never happens that way, but you can just see it and feel it. So, being that said, the wealthy, because they have more money and assets and credit, that they can wave the storm. But they take advantage of that, because when it goes up and the bear falls down, they're going to take from those that lose, and that's how they build wealth. But you just have to understand it so you can, be in the game, not out of it.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us with Tony J's 7-Figure Hustle. I want to thank our guest, Miss Melody Bazemore, who is our financial literacy expert and also the credit booster. I want to invite you all to tune back in to see us. We'll be coming back at you on a regular basis. Look for the two of us to share more information about what it is to be financial literate. And think about those points we made. Think about your multiple streams of income. Consider multi-level marketing. And when we talk about supply and demand, we should also think about what's current or what the needs are. And right now, it's because it's about financial literacy and credit, a lot of people are getting into that. So I want to think about that. Guess we've given us a shameless plug, for what we do and the credit boosters and being financial literate through credit, because that's what the number one thing that we wake up to and go to sleep. So I want to thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You can reach me on Facebook at Wanda Unique Davis, and unique is spelled EWENIQUE. Yes, a unique way to spell unique. And you can catch me on Twitter by UProsperity, EWEPROSPERITY. And on Instagram, you can reach me by Wanda Unique, WANDAEWENIQUE.
I'm Melody Bazemore, the Credit Booster, where you can find me on Facebook, The Credit Boosters, or just Melody Bazemore, where I inspire you and motivate you to create wealth and prosperity for you and your family. And I am on Instagram, _Credit Boosters, giving you financial literacy right in your hands. Change your family, change your life. We're here to help. Thank you.